System Shock occupies a strange position in gaming history. It's widely respected, frequently referenced, and rarely imitated in its purest form. When it released in 1994, it didn't fit nearly into any existing category. It wasn't just a shooter, and it wasn't just an RPG. It was something closer to a simulated space, one that asked players not just to react, but to understand. Developed by Looking Glass Technologies, the original System Shock placed players aboard Citadel Station, a corporate research facility overtaken by an artificial intelligence named Shodan. Rather than framing the story through cinematic sequences, the game embedded narrative into the environment itself. Every locked door, every audio log, and every malfunctioning system contributed to a larger picture of collapse. What made this approach radical was trust. The game trusted players to learn complex systems without explicit instruction. It trusted them to navigate nonlinear spaces and piece together fragmented information. That philosophy would later become the foundation for what we now call immersive sims. The recent System Shock remake updates the visuals and control scheme, but crucially, it does not modernize the philosophy. The friction remains, the ambiguity remains, and in a landscape of increasingly guided experience, that decision makes System Shock feel unexpectedly contemporary.
The following daily summary for Thursday, April 7th, 2072 is brought to you by the Tri-Optimum Corporation. It's been a beautiful day in New Atlanta. Sector 11 in particular has a beautiful sunset right now. Temperatures are set to hit a monthly high of 28 degrees Celsius for the next 2 days, and the current visibility forecast for air traffic is hazy with pockets of Atlanta fog starting at 120 meters going into the weekend. Planetary news. Tri-Optimum Citadel Station will celebrate its 10th year of operations this week. Citadel Station completed construction in 2062 and has been Tri-Optimum's flagship space station specializing in robotic, genetic, and pharmacological research.
Immersion is often misunderstood as visual fidelity, but System Shock demonstrates that immersion is primarily cognitive. The game doesn't aim to dazzle the senses, it aims to occupy your attention. The interface is deliberately complex, not because it's outdated, but because it represents equipment rather than abstraction. You're not looking at a game HUD, you're interacting with tools and the inside world. That distinction matters, because it keeps you mentally anchored in the fiction. Modern games frequently attempt to remove friction in the name of comfort. System Shock introduces friction to create presence. You are forced to stop, observe, and interpret. You learn spaces by moving through them repeatedly, not by following markers. You recognize danger by sound and pattern, not by highlighted enemies. This sustained engagement creates a unique form of immersion. You don't feel like you're watching events unfold, you feel like you're inside a system that operates independently of you. The station doesn't adapt to your understanding, you adapt to the station. That's why System Shock still feels immersive decades later. It doesn't simulate reality, it simulates responsibility. Shodan's effectiveness comes from how completely she dominates the player's psychological space. Oh, and by the way, Shodan is the main villain of the game. She doesn't confront you directly, she oversees you. Most antagonists announce themselves through action. Shodan asserts herself through infrastructure. Cameras track you, doors lock behind you, systems fail at inopportune moments. Her voice arrives not as guidance, but as interruption, reminding you that you're operating inside her domain. Comparing Shodan to GLaDOS highlights this distinction clearly. GLaDOS controls her environment, but she frames that control as a structured process. You are being tested. There are rules, chambers, and expectations, even when those expectations are cruel. Shodan provides no such framing. There is no experiment. There is no progression designed for your benefit. Her surveillance is constant and indifferent, where GLaDOS treats the player as a subject to be evaluated. Shodan treats the player as a flaw to be corrected. This indifference changes the emotional texture of the experience. GLaDOS entertains while she threatens. Shodan unsettles by refusing to acknowledge you as anything but an anomaly. Her restraint, long periods of silence punctuated by the contemptuous commentary, makes her presence feel pervasive rather than performative. You are not opposing Shodan, you're trespassing inside her system.
Look at you, hacker. A pathetic creature of meat and bone, panting and sweating as you run through my corridors. How can you challenge a perfect, immortal machine?
Well done. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that. Don't let that horrible person thing discourage you. It's just a data point. If it makes you feel any better, science has now validated your birth mother's decision to abandon you on a doorstep.
System Shock's difficulty is rooted in interpretation. The game does not ask how quickly you can react, it asks how well you can understand. Objectives are implied rather than stated. Progress requires listening carefully, remembering spatial layouts, and synthesizing information from incomplete sources. Audio logs don't solve problems, they provide context. Maps don't guide you, they challenge you to orient yourself. This approach can feel a little bit hostile, but it mirrors the narrative reality of the situation. You are isolated, unprepared, and operating without support. The mechanics reinforce that vulnerability. Modern design often treats confusion as a flaw. System Shock treats confusion as a signal, an indication that you need to slow down, reassess, and pay attention. When you succeed, it's because you've internalized the station's logic. That sense of earned mastery is very, very rare. It's not about overcoming difficulty, it's about becoming competent within an unforgiving system. System Shock's influence is easiest to see in the games that followed it. Half-Life adopted its environmental storytelling, eliminating cutscenes in favor of continuous perspective. BioShock inherited its use of audio logs and philosophical antagonists. Prey revived the idea of a space station as a cohesive, systemic environment. But each of these successors softened the experience. They clarified the goals. They smoothed the navigation, they reduced ambiguity. System Shock remains uncompromising by comparison. That doesn't make it superior in every way. Half-Life is the best game ever made, but it does make it instructive. It shows what happens when designers fully commit to player trust, even at the expense of accessibility. Understanding System Shock helps explain why immersive sims feel distinct. They are not power fantasies, they are competence fantasies. The System Shock remake is notable not for what it adds, but for what it refuses to remove. The friction remains intentional, the game still expects attentiveness, and in an industry increasingly driven by metrics and retention optimization, System Shock stands apart. It doesn't attempt to smooth every edge. It doesn't fear player discomfort. It assumes that engagement comes from participation, not explanation. The remake proves that we may not need more systems, we may need more trust. A trust in players to be curious, a trust in players to learn, a trust in players to fail and recover, but most important, to have fun. System Shock endures because it demands effort and rewards it. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for 100 subscribers. Even if you are a returning viewer, thank you very much, and even if you are new, thank you for clicking on this video. I appreciate you clicking on this video, even if you clicked. Thanks for watching, and hit that like button if you will, if you liked the video, and comment down below if you want more content like this. Bye-bye.